I just want to say that JD meant an enormous amount to me. We were friends since 1981, and I came to New York and started bands and got involved with drugs and had a great time with JD and was pretty crazy, but then I forgot what I was going to say about her. It was just, what did you say?
Oh, about the drugs.
Yeah, I had something to do with the drugs. However. So anyway, after that, she took me to my first AA and NA meeting. And through the next course of the next 30-some years together, she was really instrumental in my getting sober, and she was herself stayed sober for all that time. In that time, she also, I had all these stories to tell, I've forgotten them all, but the one thing I want to say is that when in February she hit 33 years, I gave her 33-year coin, and while she was lying in the hospital bed, in the last part of her hospital and then into hospice, she had this coin in her hand the entire time. And once it fell out of her hand, and when she was intubated, and she made all these things, and we went around on the floor and found it, and she needed this coin in her hand for that time, and it was really moving, and I keep it with me all the time now. So I'm going to read from the Cafe Nico 1996 Alternative New Year's Day reading, J.D. Wage's 3-minute poem. This is the 3-minute poem for the new year of 1996, where I cannot tell you enough about 1995 because there is no time, and if anyone else reads longer than me, they will be on my shit list for at least another 3 minutes. I lost people this year so important to me that it ruined my fascination with death forever. But what am I without my death? I will have to recreate myself again as a living being, and rising from the dead is not a pleasant experience, I can assure you. The one constant thing about being alive is that it's painful. I wasted many hours writing responses to all the ridiculous New York press writers who puked out articles about tattooed people being morons. Oh, surely that is me. Am I not the queen of the morons? And how drug addicts and alcoholics who are trying to quit are totally stupid, since drug addiction and alcoholism are such fun things. Boy, I never had so much fun as when my cocaine psychosis had me seeing weirdos with shotguns after me everywhere, or whether under heroin hallucinations I watched visions of my dead body trailing brown blood stains down the drain in my shower stall. What a blast, I can tell you. I have notebooks full of these dribblish letters to the editor, but I did not send any because I refused to glorify these so-called writers with my negative attention or to do anything to help them get their names in print ever again. I burned off all my long black hair trying to look like Marilyn Monroe, hoping to attract someone to me, still believing in the blondes have more fun commercials, even though I was blonde before and knew that they don't. So I wound up spending a third of the year looking like Mr. Clean, who looks like Yul Brynner and was the same birthday as me, and realized I had been twisted by fate. As usual, that night I stayed up, re-bleaching my hair until it broke off in long brownish black clumps, and I cried for the old me who would never come back again. I stayed clean and sober in 1995, now an 11-year hiatus from my slow suicide, and I have been clean and sober, but I have not been good, and have no intention of ever doing so. For some strange reason, I moved from my tenement railroad dump apartment from hell that used to have out of the blue and into the black spray paint on the gray kitchen wall. I'm going out of the black and into the blue, and in my new place, I feel like I'm living in a hotel room. It's too clean, too spacious. 1996 is here, 12 years post-Big Brother, and I have lost myself completely. Oh, punk may be dead. Oh, heavy metal is getting light again. Oh, where is my watch? I can't find it in this sea of boxes. I am late for everything, and I can't tell what time it is. But I do know that 3 minutes is approaching quickly, and that time, whatever it may be, flies faster every year until the minutes whirl into eternity, and maybe when you die, you don't even notice because things are speeding by like tigers chasing their tails so fast they turn to butter, or like this poem that is runny and gooey because a 3-minute poem is like a 3-minute egg, especially when you can't keep track of time. So why don't you crack the top open with your spoon and try to eat this poem? For all I know, there may be double yolk, or a chicken embryo, or a free coupon for one entrance to the pearly gates inside. That's the JD. Who's next? Tell who you are and how you know JD also. So after me is Edward Arrocha.
So, how you doing? So you can call me Eek or whatever you want to call me, but I didn't really read any of her poems. I just have to say a few things about her. I was the one person who spoke to JD every day for the last 6 years of her life. I also walked her dog for the last 6 years of her life. And I also spent the last weeks of her life with Jan and Peter going to hospice every day. I've been through bands with JD, I've been through the poetry routine with JD, but most importantly, towards the end of her life, we never spoke about bands or poetry, we just spoke about life. When you speak to somebody every day for 6 years and you go to their house every day for 6 years, you become their secret keeper. So I'm not going to tell you the secrets she told me, because they're secrets.
Come on.
But I do know one thing. JD was a real fighter. I've never met anybody in the world who was such a fighter. When she was down and out after she had brain surgery, she kept quoting Bob Dylan lyrics and asking me if she was still alive. And speaking about her dog, I remember when she was out in the nursing home and she had to do something as an MRI downtown, and I brought her dog and her little dog hugged her and she said, "I want to live." She lived for that dog. The day that dog died, she started to die real fast. JD, what can I tell you? She loved fishing. I don't know if any of you know this. I remember when she went to caught some fluke with me, which is extraordinary. I remember when a big fish in East River broke her line, which was really extraordinary. I remember when we went to Lake George. We went to Lake George 4 times. When we drove upstate to her house where she grew up. I remember Niagara Falls. I remember so many things. I remember the bird who would run up my arm and cuddle in my arms. And when he went away, I was heartbroken because she told me a week before she died, she said, "Elvis and Nero are getting a good home. I think that's it." And I was, in a way, happy that she went to a better place, because for some of us, the suffering had become unbearable. And her suffering, I don't know if I, personally, could deal with that kind of suffering. I don't know. I don't know if I'm that kind of fighter. I don't know if I can be bedridden and somehow rise from the bed and get in the car and drive to Lake George and catch a bunch of fish and have a fish fry. I don't know if I can do that. To me, JD was, as some of you might know, I met JD here in New York City at ABC No Rio at a poetry reading, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And she introduced me to a lot of the poetry scenes here in New York City, and very importantly, she introduced me to a place where I got better, because if some of you, well, probably none of you remember here, but I was very, very wild and very crazy. And I think I was knocking on death's door. I was that hardcore, if you all know what I mean. I'm not going to go into details. So I'm really happy today to be part of the people honoring JD's life. Again, I don't think of JD as music, poetry, or any of that. I think of JD as a really close friend of mine. I call her from Europe. I call her from Puerto Rico. I call her from everywhere. And I still have Jade's ashes in my house. And when she adopted another dog, that dog came to me. So I still have a little part of her in my house, a little dog that she adopted. And I am just very happy and kind of very humbled and actually very sad and overwhelmed to be part of this memorial. And that's all I can say, so thanks.
Thank you.
Like you, Jan, so many stories, and ones that would probably weave in beautifully with other people's stories. She was one crazy broad on the one hand, and she was so incisively brilliant. I was thinking the word I wanted to use was an incendiary in my life. J.D. was. Of course, I knew her first was Janet in 1965. We were both in Catholic girls' school. Woo! And then, yeah, subsequently both got pregnant, which is something they train you to do in Catholic school. By omission. Omission isn't the right word. Emission. I'm sorry. And I have so many things I want to say about her, but mostly I think Joanne has a poem that she's going to read. I don't know if you're doing this right after me or not.
I don't know what the plan is, but...
That J.D. wrote after a visit up north. I live up in Washington County, near the Vermont border, and on the river. And I don't know that I've ever read this poem before, so, or heard it, or seen it, so that's quite lovely. And I find that the things that I've wanted to say about J.D., I feel like I'm saying them in little pieces to people throughout the time that I'm here. Those little stories, little vignettes. So I guess that will have to do. So to my brilliant, brilliant friend, who was so smart and so messed up all at the same time, I just, I'll see you around. Thank you. Are you going to get up and speak?
Hi, I'm Bruce Weber, and I knew JD from around 90 when Eek and JD did this reading in Tribeca that I went to with my ex-wife Jan, and they told me that they were going to be running... No, it's about this reading I actually saw a couple of weeks ago upstate. And they said, oh, they're going to be running a reading at ABC Del Rio, where I had actually gone one time, and it was like a bad Sunday. And I started to go to ABC, and I went for 25 years. And then they did it for like a year, and I organized it for like over 20 years. And it was a fantastic place. Some glimpse of what it was like is to look at the cover of this. Because I made a little movie of us. So a lot of the people who are involved in the film are on that. A number of them are here. They're good old friends, and we had great times together. Not only at the readings, but we used to go out after the readings all the time and hang out. So a lot of close friends and important relationships. And I mean, JD in the poetry scene was an enormous force. We used to do events at a place that Larry Jones ran, which he called Cafe Nico, because Nico, the singer, apparently lived there on Avenue A between 6th and 7th, and I started the alternative New Year's reading. We were there for 5 years, and JD ran many events. She had me host one of the events we did for Karari, which was a wonderful magazine. Voices that most of us are still around. Some of us are gone, like JD and Bob Hart, who died a couple of years ago. Grace Period, who was there, who I called today on the phone, who's out in California. But JD published a lot of us. She published, I think our last book was a book that she published of mine. And then out of the blue one year, she said, I'm going to do another issue of Karari, and which is probably at least over 10 years ago when she did that. But a real force, and Thaddeus too. Okay, well, I'll read a piece. And it ended up, as many of you know, I'm a curator. I worked in many museums and galleries. The first show I ever curated was a show, and I didn't know it was a future friend, was JD, was at Brooklyn College when she was Janet Wayland. And I was a student volunteer in the gallery there, and we learned many, many years after that I actually curated a show of her work. It was the first one I ever did. This is 1972. Carnation. The boy with the smooth skin said, maybe it was Sid who made all these paintings crooked. Sid Vicious. And a lot of those paintings are in the back. Maybe it was Sid who made all these paintings crooked. I don't see how you can have so many paintings of a person in one place without calling up his spirit. Even the reproduction of a Native American wrapped in a blanket was hanging perfectly straight from one small nail in the upper right-hand corner that belonged to the picture next to it. I got a little scared when I tried to make it hang like that again, and it responded normally to the pull of gravity. I kept putting that carnation back. I remember what happened when I moved the biggest Sid collage the first time. It had a carnation tucked into its lower frame. Every night the carnation returned to the windowsill near where the 32 pasted cutout and drawings of him originally hung, and every night I patiently put it back. I didn't think much about it then, just what a nuisance it was to keep putting that damn flower back into the pink mirror frame which housed the Sid collage. Then the whole thing started falling. It fell a lot, but mostly about 3 a.m., crashing down in a dead sleep, and would awaken stifling screams. I didn't want to return the piece to its former location, so I reinforced the hanging wire, but then the eyelets would pull loose, so I covered the eyelets with epoxy, but then the hanging wire at quadruple thickness would break into looking like it had been sliced with a knife. Finally, I took that carnation and put it in a box with a deep purple amethyst crystal, so deep in color it appeared to be black. The collage didn't move again until I moved it. Just one day, after the second relocation of Sid, I found that collage tucked in between the collage and the mirror frame. I returned the crumpling flower to the plastic box with the crystal and taped the thing shut. Since then, I have been smashed in the face by unknown strangers. I've been stabbed my ham on a mysterious shattering glass coffee pot. And auditioning musicians have been unable to restrain themselves from touching my bass strings to show me where a note is. Even though the piano is barely out of tune and all my paintings remain in anarchy, refusing to hang straight. And yesterday my key broke in half in the door. The second broken key in 2 months. When I look at my cockeyed collection of paintings of who's dead but not forgotten, I have a feeling this isn't over yet.
Yes, thanks. I know this is a very sad occasion, but it's nice to see a lot of my old friends here. Yeah, I guess similar to Bruce, I was involved with the ABC No Rio Sunday afternoon poetry open mic series, and there were some rotating hosts, Bruce Weber, Eek, JD, myself, and so we would take different Sundays and host. I wanted to mention a couple other of those regulars from those readings have passed on, and they're probably friends of ours as well. One was Tommaso, and the other was Bob Hart. That come to mind, so I wanted to mention them. Also, I have actually spent some time in this gallery. I was here for 3 hours yesterday, basically by myself, sitting in this gallery, and I want to mention that I've looked carefully at a lot of these artworks, and they reward a close look if you take the time. Now I work for Art Forum magazine, so I tend to look at art closely, and I can say that with confidence. The other thing that, I want to mention that JD is very supportive of my work, and I didn't know until I was in this gallery this week that there's an original artwork of hers that was on a book of mine, and there it is on the wall, and there's the book. She put out 2 of my chapbooks called Sex Fiend Monologues, 1 and 2. Now, in that title, sex is an okay word, and monologues is an okay word, but fiend is not an okay word. Fiend casts some doubt on what these monologues are about. And at the time, I guess I thought that I thought maybe I could be a porn writer, but the books never sold, so they weren't porn. Because they never sold, because they never sold, they were art. Right? They were not porn. Or else they were sold, right? Okay, so I'm going to read a poem that Bruce Weber assigned to me. It's from Stained Sheets, which was the broadside that Bruce put out from that reading on Sunday at ABC No Rio. And this poem is called Desecration 105. A bum in City Hall Park told me, "You look nice in that suit." This is the first pleasant comment I have had from the street in many years. It made my yesterday, but today is here again, and I'm spending time contemplating the state of the inside of a Manhattan pigeon's stomach after watching one peck at smashed things and bits of glass it found on the bus stop sidewalk. Last night, while I was waiting for the M9, under the view of a golden-winged statue that inflamed the downtown sky with dazzling reflections of the setting sun, a sparrow landed near me. It landed several times. At least I think it was the same sparrow. It flew in wide circles from traffic sign to median tree, only to put down in the street in front of me again and cock its head at me. It was a very thin sparrow. I wondered if it was waiting for me to dole out some crumbs, some food, or if he was the spirit of my guardian angel, foreshadowed by the towering gilded statue before the darkening sky, sent to give me a message to let me know that he would always be there. Otherwise, why would he spend his time in the middle of East Broadway when there was a beautiful lawn of young green grass only inches away? Then I remembered how the rats run through the park at night and realized the lawn must be full of poison, or only fake sod with no worms, or contaminated worms. And who cares anyway? After all, a sparrow is really just a flying rat anyway. Thank you.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah. So, I love JD. I did. She saved my life. I thought she was the coolest thing in Ray-Bans. She never really asked me to be anything but Charlene. She's very annoying at times. And so am I. You know, and I don't have JD stories. I just really loved her. You know, I just really loved her. And I wish that I could do JD for you and just stomp across the stage and like I did that once in my students and they were freaked out. And you know, but I'll do my best. When I read this poem, when we were looking for what we should read, I thought this is the JD poem that I think of. You know, it describes her, it describes her apartment, it describes her brain, the inside of her brain, which is the reason I fell in love with her, because it's, you know, a lot of noise in there. For me too, and she was one of the few people I know that talk about it. So, this is called Dead Roses. While I was eating dinner, I noticed that the dead white rose is bleeding. A man, and I don't know if he is homeless, so I will just refer to him as a drunken bum, rants incoherent poetry outside my window. My large red fish swims around, ignoring this recitation. Sounds vaguely like Shakespeare. The leopard curtains shrink as a cold draft pours through the crack where the window won't go all the way down, I yell, "Shut up!" and think about tomorrow and things that never come. All the while knowing that at this very second, 1,000,000 lovers are within reach of ecstasy. 10,000 souls are getting their heads blown off, or knives buried in their throats. At least 500 old ladies are tossing breadcrumbs to pigeons. Many corpses are being pumped with formaldehyde and placed in boxes and getting dirt thrown on their face. And one wild man is raving on my sidewalk, doing a good impression of the inside of my own head. Got a pig on my computer and a hubcap on my wall. How much more could anyone want? The silence is deafening, because my brain will not be quiet and chooses solemn moments to begin its idiotic chanting. There are dead roses everywhere today, it says. I wonder if Lee Harvey Oswald was innocent, it says. I wonder if death will give a wink before swallowing, it says. The phone is ringing. No, it's only the bird. He does a phone better than any phone, and you can't turn the volume down. Like in your head, like in your head. There's a good imitation of someone crying. There is a passable mimicking of intelligence, but there is also a poor excuse for a dream of freedom from all fear. All those dreams where the baby died and the dog died of starvation because you forgot to feed them, because you were too lazy to go to the store. Nothing could save them. They were your crime. But as usual, you can breathe a big sigh of relief when you wake up and nothing is real again. Got everything money can buy. Got a silver gargoyle bat dog on a chain. Got a Frankenstein doll. Got a computer that talks. What more could anyone want? When happiness comes, it lands like a butterfly, and it takes off in a hurry. I don't know if the chants I am hearing are from the Shakespearean bum or broadcasting from my pit, but I'm hearing chants, gibberish. I wonder if you will burn in hell, it says. I wonder if it's even worth it for you to read the tarot or talk to the fortune teller, it says. Empty is empty, it says. Got a pig on my computer. Got a hubcap on my wall. Got a bird that rings like a telephone. Got a clock that looks like dynamite. Got a fan that looks like a robot with red flashing eyes and cools you off too. What more could anyone want? There are dead roses in the kitchen because that's where I put them. I wish I could give them away for presents, but I couldn't bear to lose them. They are all I have left of me. And besides, who would want dead roses? And who would love dead roses? One woman's dead rose is another woman's useless, dusty, and sometimes moldy garbage. So I'll keep them, especially the white one that is bleeding.